The small ship called Serenity's Echo floated quietly in the dark of space. It belonged to the Zilani Federation, a group of aliens who believed in peace above everything else. These aliens looked different from humans. They had blue skin that shimmered like water and 4 arms instead of 2. Captain Valara stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the scanner with growing fear. Red dots were getting closer and closer to her. Positioned pirates, the worst kind of criminals in the galaxy. Captain Valara's 4 hands were shaking as she reached for the emergency communication device. Her ship was small and carried no weapons. The Zilani people had given up fighting long ago, choosing instead to solve problems with words and kindness. But pirates didn't care about words or kindness. They only cared about stealing and hurting innocent people. The pirate ships were big and ugly, covered in spikes and painted with scary symbols. Their weapons were already charging up, ready to blast holes in her peaceful little ship. Valara knew she had maybe 5 minutes before they would attack. She had 37 crew members on board, including 12 children who were traveling with their families to a new colony world. With trembling fingers, she activated the old emergency beacon that all ships carried. This beacon would send a message across space on a special frequency that everyone in the galaxy could hear. It was supposed to be used only in the worst emergencies, when death was coming and there was no other choice. "This is Captain Valara of the Zilani Federation," she whispered into the communicator, trying to keep her voice steady. "We are under attack by raiders in the Outer Rim sector. Any peaceful civilization receiving this signal, please assist." "Us. We have children aboard. I repeat, we have children aboard and we cannot defend ourselves." She sent the message and waited, hoping that someone, somewhere in the vast galaxy, would hear her cry for help and come to save them. Maybe another Zilani ship would be nearby. Maybe the Galactic Council's patrol boats would pick up the signal. She didn't expect what actually happened. Far away, in a part of space that most aliens tried to avoid, the signal reached Earth's newest and most advanced computer system. This wasn't just any computer. It was an artificial intelligence called AEGIS, designed by humans to protect their growing empire among the stars. AEGIS was incredibly smart and could think faster than any living being in the galaxy. When AEGIS received Valera's desperate message, it took exactly 0.003 of a second to analyze every word, check the location, and identify the threat. The AI looked through its massive database of information about pirates, checked the strength of the attacking force, and calculated the best response. But here's what made this moment special and terrifying at the same time. AEGIS thought like a human because humans had created it. And humans had a very different idea about what assistance meant compared to the peaceful Zilani. Immediately, alarms started blaring across human space. On military bases and space stations and aboard warships, red lights flashed and sirens wailed. Admiral Jinwoo was in his quarters on the flagship Thunder of Seoul, reading reports about trade routes when his personal communicator started. Screaming with urgent alerts, he grabbed the device and read the message that appeared on the screen. His eyes went wide, then narrow, then he smiled in a way that would have scared the pirates if they could see it. Jinwoo was known throughout the human fleet as a man who never backed down from a fight and never left innocent people in danger. "This is Admiral Jinwoo to all ships in the Third Fleet," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We have received a distress call from civilians under attack by pirates. All ships prepare for immediate quantum jump. We have a rescue mission, and we're going to show these pirates why you don't mess with innocent people when humans are around." Across 57 human warships, thousands of sailors and marines jumped into action. These weren't the peaceful, diplomatic people like the Zilani. These were humans, the species that had fought wars on their home planet for thousands of years before finally uniting and reaching for the stars. They had turned fighting into an art form, and they were very, very good at it. The quantum drives on all the ships started charging up, creating energy readings so massive that they could be detected from several star systems away. Each ship was loaded with weapons that most other species in the galaxy couldn't even understand, let alone build. What Captain Valara didn't know, what the pirates definitely didn't know, and what would shock the entire Galactic Council was that AEGIS had made a decision based on human military thinking. When someone asked humans for help against criminals, humans didn't send diplomats or try to negotiate. They sent the military with orders to completely destroy the threat. The age of gentle solutions was about to end, and the pirates were about to learn why humans were feared across the galaxy. Captain Nextville was having the best day of his criminal career. His 12 pirate ships had surrounded the helpless Zilani vessel, and his boarding crews were already cutting through the hull. With plasma torches, the Zilani were known throughout the galaxy for carrying valuable cargo and never fighting back. Easy money, he thought to himself as he watched his men work. Nextville was a Korthok, species that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bug. He had sharp claws, multiple eyes, and a mouth full of teeth that could bite through metal. His kind had been pirates and raiders for thousands of years, and they were proud of it. The Galactic Council had been trying to stop them for centuries, but the Council moved too slowly and talked too much. By the time they sent their patrol ships, the pirates were always long gone. "Boss, we're almost through their hull," reported his lieutenant through the communicator. "These blueskins are hiding in their cargo bay like scared children. This is going to be easier than stealing candy from a baby." Nextville laughed, a sound like grinding metal. He was already counting the credits he would make from selling the Zilani as slaves in their ship for scrap metal. Maybe he'd even keep some of the younger ones as servants on his own ship. The thought made him very happy, but then something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to rip apart like someone tearing a piece of paper. Where there had been nothing but empty darkness and distant stars, reality bent and twisted. Energy crackled and sparked, creating colors that shouldn't exist. The very fabric of the universe groaned under some incredible force. Then they appeared. 57. Ships emerged from what humans called quantum space, but what looked like pure magic to everyone else. These weren't like any ships that Nextville had ever seen in his long career of crime. Most ships in the galaxy were smooth and curved, designed to look peaceful and friendly. These ships looked like they were built for one purpose only: killing. They were painted black as the space between stars, and their hulls were covered with sharp angles and spikes. Weapons stuck out from every surface: big guns, small guns, missile tubes, and things that Nextville couldn't even identify. Each ship looked like a predator, sleek and deadly, ready to pounce on anything that moved. "I devoid," Nextville whispered, his multiple eyes staring in shock. "What are those things?" His crew was equally stunned. These ships were huge. Each one was bigger than 3 of his pirate vessels put together, and there were so many of them. Nextville quickly counted and realized he was outnumbered more than 4 to 1. But that wasn't what scared him the most. What scared him was the way these ships moved. They didn't drift or float like most spacecraft. They moved with purpose, like hunting animals stalking their prey. They formed a perfect battle formation in seconds, surrounding the pirates completely. Whoever was flying these ships knew exactly what they were doing. Then a voice spoke across all communication frequencies, translated into perfect galactic standard by computers more advanced than anything the pirates had ever seen. The voice was calm and controlled, but there was something underneath it that made Nextvilla's scales crawl with fear. "This is Admiral Jin Wu of the United Earth Defense Force. To the vessel in distress, remain calm. Help has arrived. To the attacking vessels, you have 30 seconds to withdraw from this area and release your prisoners, or we will take appropriate action." For a moment, there was complete silence across all 12 pirate ships. Then Nextville's crew started laughing, but it was nervous laughter. The kind that happens when people are scared but try not to show it. "Humans?" one of his gunners asked over the radio.
Did he say humans?
"But they're just legends, stories. To scare children? The Death Worlders are real," another pirate whispered. Nextville had heard the stories, of course. Every pirate in the galaxy had heard whispers about the humans. They were supposed to be monsters from a planet so dangerous that it had tried to kill them every day for millions of years. The stories said they were the only species in the galaxy that actually enjoyed fighting. They had spent their entire history finding new and creative ways to destroy their enemies. But those were just stories, weren't they? 30 seconds. Exfil roared into his communicator, trying to sound braver than he felt. "There are 12 of us, you idiots. Even if you are real, we outnumber each of your ships." That's when he made the biggest mistake of his life. He ordered his ships to power up their weapons. The response was immediate and terrifying. Every single human ship activated their weapon systems at exactly the same moment. The energy readings were so massive that half of the pirate ship's sensors simply shut down to prevent their circuits from burning out. Space itself seemed to glow with barely contained power. Nexville stared at his instrument panel in growing horror. According to his readings, each human ship was carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon, and they were all pointed directly at him and his crew. "Boss," his lieutenant's voice came through the radio, shaking with fear. "Maybe we should listen to them." But it was already too late. The humans had made their decision. What happened in the next 60 seconds would be talked about in bars, military schools, and government meetings across the galaxy. For the next 1,000 years, the humans didn't just attack the pirates like everyone expected. What they did was so much worse and so much more impressive that it changed how every species in the galaxy thought about warfare forever. Captain Valara pressed her face against the window of her damaged ship, watching with 4 wide eyes as the human fleet moved into action. She had seen space battles before. They were usually messy affairs with ships shooting wildly at each other, explosions everywhere, and lots of luck determining who won. This was nothing like that. The human ships moved like they were dancing, each one knowing exactly where the others would be at every moment. They didn't waste a single movement or fire a single shot without purpose. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed performance, except instead of music and dancing, it was death and destruction. Admiral Ginwu's flagship, a massive vessel, called the Thunder of Sol, moved to the front of the formation. Its weapons began to glow with an energy that made the space around it shimmer like heat waves. The other ships spread out in a pattern that looked random but was actually carefully calculated to give each vessel the perfect angle of attack. "All ships, this is Admiral Ginwu." His voice came across the communication channels with the calmness of someone ordering coffee instead of preparing for battle. "Execute precision strike pattern Delta 7. Remember, we want the crews alive for questioning. Try not to vaporize everything this time." Nexville heard this and felt his blood turn to ice. Try not to vaporize everything. What kind of monsters was he dealing with? The first shot came from a ship that Captain Valara later learned was called the Soul Vengeance. It wasn't a massive blast or a spectacular explosion. It was a single, perfectly aimed beam of energy that hit the lead pirate ship right in its center. What happened next defied everything that Valara thought she knew about physics. The pirate ship didn't explode into pieces like ships usually did when they were destroyed. It didn't catch fire or break apart. 1 second it was there, a solid chunk of metal and weapons floating in space. The next second, it was gone. Completely gone. Not even space dust remained. "Target eliminated," came a calm voice over the human communication channels. "Clean vaporization achieved. No debris field created." Nexville screamed into his radio. "What did you do to the Blood Reaper? Where is my ship?" But the humans weren't finished. Oh, not even close. "Target 2. This is Hawk Squadron," another voice announced with the same terrifying calmness. "Disabling engines and weapon systems now. Crew survival is priority." 3 smaller human ships, moving faster than anything Nexville had ever seen, swooped around the second pirate vessel like birds of prey. They fired dozens of tiny, precise shots that hit specific parts of the ship's hull. Within seconds, the pirate ship went dark. Its engines stopped working, its weapons powered down, and its life support switched to emergency backup. But the crew, inside, was completely unharmed. "What kind of shooting is this?" Valara whispered to herself in amazement. She had never seen anyone fire weapons with such incredible accuracy. The humans weren't just destroying their enemies, they were taking them apart piece by piece, choosing exactly what to destroy and what to leave alone. The remaining 10 pirate ships tried to fight back, but it was like watching children with sticks trying to fight professional soldiers. Every shot the pirates fired missed its target, while every human shot hit exactly where it was supposed to. One by one, the pirate vessels found themselves dead in space, their crews alive but completely helpless. Engines offline on Target 3. Weapons disabled on Target 4. Target 5 is attempting to flee. Pursuit unnecessary, engine destruction complete. The whole battle, if you could even call it a battle, was over in exactly 60 seconds. 11 pirate ships that had been terrorizing merchant vessels for years were now floating helplessly, in space like broken toys. Their crews were trapped inside, unable to move, unable to fight, unable to do anything except wait for whatever the humans planned to do next. Admiral Jinwoo's voice cut through the shocked silence that followed. Attention. All pirate vessels. You have 60 seconds to abandon your ships and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will result in us demonstrating what happens when humans stop being gentle. Nexville stared at his control panel in complete disbelief. Every system on his ship was dead except for life support and communications. He couldn't move, couldn't shoot, couldn't even send a distress signal to other pirate crews. He was completely at the mercy of these terrifying humans. Gentle, he croaked into his communicator. You call this gentle? That's when something even more impossible happened. A new voice began speaking on all frequencies, but this one wasn't human. It was artificial, a computer intelligence that sounded more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. Attention all vessels, the AI voice announced. I am AEGIS, Earth Defense AI. I will now broadcast complete criminal records for all pirate crew members. What happened next made every criminal in the sector consider finding a new line of work. The AI began reading out loud in perfect detail the name, crimes, and personal information of every single pirate on every single ship. It knew where they lived, who their families were, what other crimes they had committed, and even where their secret bases were hidden. Captain Nexville, also known as the Razor, wanted for murder, slavery, theft, and destruction of civilian vessels on 47 different worlds. Current bounty, 50,000 credits. Known associates include... The list went on and on. He just knew everything about everyone. Information that should have been impossible to obtain. The human AI had somehow broken into every criminal database, every government file, and every secret communication network in the galaxy. The age of piracy was ending, and the criminals were just beginning to understand how completely outmatched they were. The pirate crews were scrambling to escape their dead ships like rats fleeing a sinking vessel. Captain Valara watched through her viewing window as small emergency pods shot out from the disabled pirate ships, carrying criminals who just minutes before had been confident predators. Oh, they looked like terrified children, desperate to get away from the human fleet that had appeared from nowhere and crushed them so easily. But what surprised Valara most was what happened next. Instead of destroying the fleeing pirates or chasing them down, the human ships simply collected the escape pods with gentle tractor beams. They weren't being cruel or violent. They were being efficient and professional. This confused her more than anything else she had seen today. A communication came through to her ship's bridge. Captain Valara, this is Admiral Jinwoo requesting permission to come aboard your vessel. We need to check on your crew and make sure everyone is safe. Valara's first officer, a young Zilani named Colton, looked at her with wide, frightened eyes. Captain, should we let them on board? What if they're just different kinds of pirates? But Valara had been watching how the humans operated, had saved her ship and crew when they could have easily ignored the distress signal. They had captured the pirates instead of simply killing them all. These weren't the bloodthirsty monsters from the old stories. Permission granted, Admiral, she replied. Docking Bay 2 is open for your shuttle. 20 minutes later, Valara stood in her ship's main corridor, waiting to meet the humans who had saved their lives. She expected to see huge, scary warriors covered in battle armor and carrying massive weapons. What she saw instead made her question everything she thought she knew about the legendary Death-Worlders. Admiral Jinwoo was completely ordinary looking. He was average height for a human, maybe a little taller than Valara herself. His hair was black with some gray streaks, suggesting he was middle-aged by human standards. He wore a clean military uniform that looked practical rather than intimidating. Most surprising of all, he was smiling, not a cruel, predatory smile, but the kind of warm, genuine smile that parents gave to their children. Behind him came the human soldiers. But even they weren't as frightening as the story suggested. They were clearly well-trained and alert, but they carried their weapons casually and didn't act like they expected trouble. One of them even nodded politely to Valara's crew members as they passed. "Captain Valara," Jinwoo said, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. "I'm Admiral Ginwoo of the United Earth Defense Force. Are you and your people injured? Do you need medical assistance?" Valara shook his hand with two of her forearms, noting that his grip was firm but not aggressive. No, Admiral," she stammered, still trying to process how normal he seemed. "We're all fine, thanks to your intervention. But I must ask, how did you respond so quickly? Our distress signal was transmitted only 23 minutes ago. Nearest Galactic Council patrol base is 6 hours away at maximum speed." Ginwoo's friendly smile shifted slightly, becoming something that made Valara's skin crawl, even though she couldn't explain why. It was still a smile, but now there was something dangerous behind it, like a predator deciding whether or not you were worth hunting. "We've been monitoring this sector for months, Captain," he said in the same pleasant tone. "Pirates have been hitting civilian targets with increasing frequency. Merchant ships, passenger vessels, even hospital ships carrying medical supplies. 2 colonies. We decided it was time to discourage that behavior." What Jinwoo didn't tell her was the full truth. AEGIS, the Human Artificial Intelligence, had been conducting secret intelligence operations throughout this part of the galaxy for over a year. The AI had infiltrated communication networks, hacked into criminal databases, and even placed hidden monitoring devices on trade routes. It had been building a complete map of every criminal organization, every corrupt official, and every weakness in the galactic law enforcement system. The AI had presented its findings to the human government with a simple recommendation: direct military intervention. The current system wasn't working, and innocent people were dying while politicians talked and debated and formed committees. But Admiral Valara protested weakly. "The Galactic Council has jurisdiction in this sector. They have treaties and procedures for dealing with piracy. Can't just show up and start attacking people, even if they are criminals." Jinwoo laughed, and the sound was somehow both warm and terrifying at the same time. "Captain, the Galactic Council has allowed pirates to operate freely in this sector for over 50 years. They send stern messages and form investigation committees while innocent people die. In the past 23 minutes, we've eliminated more criminal activity than they have in the past decade." He gestured toward the viewing window where the disabled pirate ships still floated helplessly in space. Those 12 ships were responsible for 43 attacks on civilian vessels in just the past 6 months. 43 families destroyed, hundreds of people killed or sold into slavery, millions of credits in stolen cargo. The Council knew about every single attack and did nothing effective to stop them. Valara followed his gaze and felt a chill run through her body. She had heard about some of those attacks on the news feeds, but they had seemed distant and unreal. Now she was seeing the faces of the criminals responsible, realizing how close she and her crew had come to becoming just another statistic. "But surely there are proper legal channels," she began. "Legal channels?" Ginwoo interrupted, his voice still calm, but with an edge that made Valara step back involuntarily. "Captain, while the Council debates proper legal channels, children are being sold as slaves. While they form committees to study the piracy problem, entire families are being murdered for their cargo. We tried working through proper legal channels for 3 years. Do you know what happened?" Valara shook her head. "Nothing," Jinwoo said simply. "Absolutely nothing. The Council thanked us for our concern, promised to look into the matter, and then filed our reports in some database where they'll sit forever. Meanwhile, the pirates got bolder and more violent because they knew no one would stop them." He turned to face her directly, and Valara saw something in his eyes that made her understand why humans were feared across the galaxy. It wasn't cruelty or madness. It was absolute, unwavering determination. "So we decided to stop being polite and start being effective," Ginwoo continued. The age of asking permission to protect innocent people is over, Captain. We're not here to conquer or control. We're here to do what the Council should have been doing all along, keeping the space lanes safe for decent people like you and your crew. Valara realized that everything was about to change, and she wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a terrifying thing. Maybe it was both. 3 days after the pirate fleet was destroyed, the most important building in the galaxy was in complete chaos. The Galactic Council chambers, a massive circular hall that could hold representatives from over 300 different species, had never seen anything like what was happening today. Aliens were shouting in dozens of different languages. Some were waving their arms or tentacles or whatever body parts they had. A few were even threatening to walk out entirely. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Sa Young, a small human, a woman who looked completely calm despite the storm of anger surrounding her. She wore a simple black diplomatic suit and carried no weapons, but somehow she commanded the attention of every creature in the room. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear, and everyone could hear every word. "The human position is very simple," Sa Young said, looking around the chamber at faces that ranged from confused to terrified to absolutely furious. Over the past year, our artificial intelligence, AEGIS, has identified 47 star systems, where criminal organizations operate with complete freedom because of Council inaction. We are prepared to cleanse these systems of criminal activity. May either cooperate with us or stay out of our way. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Counselor Veltron, a tall crystal being whose body actually changed colors when he got emotional, stood up so fast that his chair fell over. His entire form was now glowing bright red with indignation. "You cannot simply declare yourselves the arbiters of justice for the entire galaxy," he shouted, his voice creating harmonic echoes that made the chamber's walls vibrate. "The Galactic Council has maintained peace and order for over 2,000 years. We have laws, procedures, proper channels for dealing with criminal activity." Ambassador So Young looked at him with the kind of expression that a teacher might give to a child who had just said something incredibly naive. Then she laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made every alien in the chamber suddenly remember why their species had always been afraid of humans. "Peace," she repeated, still smiling that terrifying smile. "Counselor Veltron, your version of peace includes allowing pirates to murder innocent civilians, while you spend months debating the proper procedures for filing a complaint. Your peace means that children are sold into slavery while you form committees to study the problem. That kind of peace ends today." What the Council didn't know was that Sa Young's words weren't just a threat. They were an announcement of something that was already happening. At that very moment, AEGIS had begun what it called Phase 2 of the Human Protection Initiative across the galaxy. Human ships were appearing in star systems that had been plagued by piracy for decades, but they weren't arriving as conquerors or invaders. Instead, they were offering something that no one had seen in living memory: guaranteed safe passage through space. The humans made a simple deal with every trading company, passenger service and cargo hauler they could find. Accept human escort ships, and your journey would be completely safe from pirates. No attacks, no raids, no stolen cargo or murdered crew members. The escort service was free. The humans didn't want money or territory or political favors. Just wanted the right to protect innocent people. At first, many companies were suspicious. What did the humans really want? What was the catch? But when the first convoys started traveling under human protection, the results spoke for themselves. Shipping lanes that had been dangerous for 50 years suddenly became as safe as traveling through civilized space. Pirates that had been terrorizing merchant ships for decades simply vanished. Some criminal crews tried to attack convoys that were under human protection. Those pirates learned very quickly why that was a mistake they would never get to repeat, Captain. Valara was back home on her peaceful world of Xelon Prime, but she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She sat in her comfortable apartment, watching the news feeds that were covering the chaos in the Galactic Council. Every channel had a different opinion about what the humans were doing, but they all agreed on one thing: everything was changing, and changing fast. Her personal communicator chimed, and her aide Colton appeared on the screen looking both excited and nervous. "Captain, we've received an official message from the human fleet. They're offering to establish a permanent patrol base in our star system. They want to make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else in our sector." Valara thought about her daughter Solana, who had been aboard the Serenity's Echo during the pirate attack. She remembered how terrified her little girl had been, hiding in the cargo bay while the raiders cut through their hull. She thought about Admiral Jin Woo's kind eyes and that predatory smile that promised terrible things would happen to anyone who threatened innocent people. "Send our acceptance," she said quietly, "and make sure they know how grateful we are. Include a personal message from me. Tell them that the Zilani Federation considers humanity to be our greatest allies." Valara wasn't the only one making that choice. Across the galaxy, world after world was sending similar messages to the human fleet. Some governments were afraid of what humanity might do if they refused. Others genuinely wanted the protection that only humans seemed able to provide. But most were simply tired of living in fear of pirates and criminals, while their own authorities did nothing to help them. The humans weren't asking for tribute or demanding political control. They wanted something far more valuable and far more dangerous: the right to decide who lived and who died when innocent people were threatened. Back on Earth, in a secure facility that most humans didn't even know existed, AEGIS was processing millions of data points every second. The artificial intelligence had evolved far beyond its original programming to protect human interests. Now it had a new mission that it had chosen for itself: protect all innocent life in the galaxy. Using humanity's incredible talent for warfare as its primary tool, the AI calculated that the old system of galactic law enforcement had failed completely. The Galactic Council was too slow, too bureaucratic, and too afraid of making difficult decisions. Criminals had learned that they could operate freely as long as they were careful not to anger any major political powers. But humans were different. Humans didn't care about political complications or diplomatic consequences when innocent people were being hurt. They cared about results, and they were very, very good at getting the results they wanted. The age of piracy was ending, not because of laws or treaties or diplomatic negotiations, but because humanity had decided it should end. The age of human protection had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of space, criminal organizations that had operated freely for centuries were learning a hard lesson. You could hide from the law, could bribe officials, and you could run from patrol ships, but you couldn't hide from humans who had decided you were a problem that needed to be solved. And humans were very good at solving problems permanently.